everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all, and unfortunately I am breaking my promise not to cover any allegations or social media stories for the next few weeks, but I think it's for a good reason, because I want to talk about J.K. Rowling finding a new target, the asexual community, because for some reason, once again, the rad femmes and the far right aligning on an issue has something to do with who I am as a person. Splendid. So, what happened? And first of all, I don't want to assume that my audience knows what's been going on with J.K. Rowling for what feels like forever now. There's a chance that a lot of you still only know her as the author of Harry Potter, and that's it. And if you're one of those people, I am sorry to burst your bubble, and God, I wish I had your life. I am not going to be going over every tiny detail. Other YouTubers have covered her descent into madness in depth, and I don't need to repeat their work. But if you're curious, I have a few of them linked down below. But to make a very long story short, in between telling people on Twitter that Hogwarts did have Jewish wizards, one to be exact named Goldstein, and announcing to audiences that Dumbledore had secretly been gay this whole time, Rowling slipped and fell all the way down the trans-exclusionary radical feminist pipeline. Her trip began innocently enough, with her liking the odd tweet or following a feminist with controversial viewpoints, but things really ramped up between December 2019 and June 2020, during which time she publicly defended openly anti-trans people and showed ire for the phrase people who menstruate, among other issues. It was at this time that she tweeted the now infamous statement, "Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you, live your best life in peace and security." And I could spend an entire video outlining exactly why that statement feels so icky, but I'll keep it short and sweet. If it doesn't seem obvious to you, the phrasing she chose reeks of the same faux acceptance you often hear from low-tier homophobes. Gay people are fine, they just need to keep to themselves and do their PDA at home. I don't want to be forced to look at that, But all of that totally flew over the head of J.K. Rowling. I am sure the isolation and disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic and all the conspiratorial thinking that generated did not help any, because she, like many of us, was stuck inside arguing with people on Twitter all day, which rarely leads to anything positive for your mental health. She would have had enough money to fly off to a private island she bought for herself until lockdowns ended, unlike 99.8% of humanity, but stars, they're just like us. In any case, her condition didn't seem to improve once lockdown restrictions ended. If anything, she's only worsened over the last several years. In 2022, she published a book in which a YouTube creator is smeared with claims of transphobia in an intentional attack. Right? I guess. Rowling has never once meaningfully changed her views or apologized, and has only ever doubled down. She's scarcely better than television writer turned online harassment factory Graham Linehan, who shares much, if not all, of her anti-trans views. To have Rowling tell it, though, she's doing all of this for a very important reason. She's afraid for women's safety. Cis women. Real women, that is. She doesn't want women to be erased, so terms like people who menstruate or breastfeeding people are offensive to her. Never mind the fact that those terms also help to make distinctions between different types of cis women as well. She's concerned about losing butch lesbians because, as a straight woman, she knows that lesbians are in a crisis and the trans agenda is stealing precious butch lifeblood from the lesbian mafia. And I wouldn't be the first to make a connection between Rowling's transphobia and her status as a survivor of SA and DV. Rowling herself has made that connection, albeit from a different angle than I would take it. She's ardently defended the need for strict single-sex spaces and fears that compromising on the idea that natal vagina equal woman will cause women to no longer be able to work together as a unified class, that allowing cis and trans women to be included together as women will alienate cis women and put them in more unsafe positions for some reason.
Hi everyone, this is Editing Evie popping in to tell you all about today's sponsor, BEDUCATED. We have talked about them several times before on the channel, but if you don't know them, they are genuinely one of the best resources on the internet for adult intimacy education. And recently, I turned to them for help with one of my longest running issues. Of all things, dirty talk. I am, I must confess, notoriously bad at dirty talk. If one of my partners turns to me and asks, "How do you like that?" in the middle of a scene, I clam up instantly and either I go full logic mode or I just start going, "Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I like that." And it's embarrassing. So I have really wanted to get better at it for a long time now. And frankly, I just want to not be so afraid of it anymore either. So I found one of their classes by Marla Renee Stewart that focused on dirty talk. And it wasn't super long. It was only 30 minutes. And I am not saying that my dirty talk problem is cured now or anything. But that class really helped me understand my fears around dirty talk a lot better and helped me understand that dirty talk is about more than just role play or turning your partner on. It can also be a tool for affirmation, which I think is fantastic. And BEDUCATED is full of classes just like this. If you struggle with dirty talk like me, or you think you would benefit from one of their dozens of other classes on topics like massage, fantasy exploration, online dating, or core kink techniques, you can use my code EVIELUPINE, EVIELUPINE, at checkout to get their yearly pass for only $8.33 a month. And if you don't love it, but I'm sure you will, they have a 14-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's Evie Lupine at checkout using only the link in my description box. Thanks again to BEDUCATED, and now back to the video.
And a large number of TERFs are cis women with a trauma history involving cis men. It's something I've run into time and time again. People who have been harmed, in an effort to keep themselves and others safe, will come up with all kinds of rules to attempt to avoid further harm. And they simply cannot accept the idea that trans women are not just sneaky men attempting to find new ways to access their spaces for predatory gain. Are there trans women who are predatory? Yes. Are there cis women who are predatory? Absolutely yes. And yet, I do not think we should deny marginalized people access to care as a group because somewhere out there is a trans prison inmate who assaulted another inmate, as one example. But again, I could go on and on and on and on about all that stuff. There are literally years of her tweets to comb through, should one be so inclined, which I am very much not. So that's basically what y'all need to know about J.K. Rowling as she is today. The famed children's author has spent the last half-decade supporting anti-trans rhetoric, all while alienating herself from a large portion of her previous fan base and many of the actors and professionals who helped bring her words to life. But as could easily be predicted by anyone who had been half paying attention, J.K. Rowling wouldn't solely focus her rage against trans people for long. Oh no. Her Eye of Sauron has now turned, predictably, to the asexual community. On April 6th, which is International Asexuality Day, J.K. Rowling posted a photo promoting awareness of the event. She included her thoughts above the photo, which read, quote, "Happy International Fake Oppression Day to everyone who wants complete strangers to know they don't fancy a shag," and just, whew, you can put whatever cute little British spin you want on that, but yikes. It is worth noting that nothing in the photo she shared, nor anything in the wider mission statement for International Asexuality Day includes anything about oppression, or even so much as a desire to have asexuality recognized on a wide scale as a marginalized group. The photo she posted gave only a pretty standard definition of asexuality, that is, when people experience little to no sexual attraction. And the goals of the event are advocacy, celebration, education, and solidarity, not, as J.K. Rowling would have you believe, we are the most oppressed group of all time. Please throw us the world's biggest pity party on our special day we made up for no reason, or whatever. So seemingly what happened is that Rowling saw a day that was happening that she wasn't previously aware of, saw it was for some sort of weird sexuality beyond gay or lesbian, and her vision went red as she furiously typed out about all these fake, oppressed, ridiculous people are trying to to her nearly 14.5 million Twitter followers. This is one example of why people see radfems and the alt-right as being aligned, by the way, without missing a beat. When they see a sexual orientation do literally anything, they jump on it and start reflexively screaming about how fake or silly or ridiculous it is, to the applause of their audience who implicitly agree. One exchange she had with another author, of the boy in the striped pajamas, by the way, was particularly troubling. Quote, "This is the problem with lumping everyone who isn't straight into a LGBTQ etc. category. If asexual people don't want sex, good luck to them, but gay people quite like it actually. So why am I and other gays thrown in a category with them? Makes no sense." Because I guess cis white gay dudes are the sole arbiters of who is allowed to be in their exclusive club they obviously own the rights to and are leaders of. But Rowling took it a step further in her response, quote, "Refusing to accept that people who don't like sex belong in the gay category is akin to wanting segregated bathrooms in the 1950s, John, as approximately 1,000 gender activists will inform you once their hands stop literally shaking." And, well, there it is, right? The acceptance of asexuality in public is some kind of psyop by the gender activists that Rowling is so afraid of, so I guess that makes asexuals an acceptable target for public ridicule for some reason. And I spent enough time scrolling through the top replies and quote retweets to tell you that precisely no one of import was comparing this to racial segregation, but condensing a plethora of legitimate criticism into, OMG, I can't believe these radical gender activists are making comparisons to racism, is a tried and true deflection mechanism. I mean, the creator of the name Cho Chang would know a thing or two about racism, I guess, but the angle is, if everything they say is so obviously unhinged as we're making it out to be, you don't have to take anything they say on board at all, right? J.K. Rowling only wants to hear people agreeing with her, saying things like, everything has its own day now, what'll be next? And I bet they are mostly people who are on SSRIs, or I'd quite like to see an International Day of Nothing Day, a day where absolutely nothing at all is rammed down our throats. I am quite sure that none of the people posting any of this were previously aware of International Asexuality Day, despite the fact it's been going on for 4 years now. You know, yeah, we're really ramming it down people's throats, because that's what asexuals love to do, ram things down people's throats. Sorry, A-spec person, had to make the joke. It was right there. I mean, that's why almost no one knew it existed until J.K. Rowling came along, right? It's obvious that making someone think for 5 seconds about a thing they haven't heard of before equals forcing it down our throats to some. I could go on and on reading some of the replies Rowling got, and many of them are much nastier than the examples I gave, like breaking YouTube TOS levels of nasty. Rest assured that it's the usual anti-asexual combination of, OMG, why do they insist they're so special, with they're just mentally ill, and other such ilk. And to no one's surprise, Rowling continued to double down on her initial reaction and further responses and comments, saying things like, how do asexual people know whether they're gay or straight, I wonder? Or, how are you supposed to tell which you are if you don't experience sexual attraction? When people attempted to point out that no, Rowling and company, asexual people are not just straight people announcing their desire not to have sex in public. And in fact, you can be gay and ace, or bi an ace, or any other combination. I wish she was just a confused boomer asking honest questions about a term she had never heard before, but I think everyone knows by this point that that is not what she is. In her mind, these questions are like a gotcha, like, oh yeah, how can you be ace and gay? Don't you know gay people like to have sex? I know because my butch lesbian friend said so. Stop erasing the inherent sexuality of gay people. But just to be clear, for the members of my audience who do not know about this, we have a beautiful thing called the split attraction model, which helps us explain how sometimes our romantic attraction and our sexual attraction are separate from each other, because the human experience is weird and wide and wonderful, and our language is only a best guess attempt at trying to capture that complexity. The split attraction model gives us a new way of including more of that complexity into our language, and it doesn't just work for asexual people either. Folks can be bisexual and homoromantic. They can be lesbian and aromantic. There's all sorts of combinations. But instead of thinking of this as a neat and interesting way of solving a very real language gap, it's seen as trying to sanitize queer sexuality. Of course, it's also viewed as a Trojan horse to sneak straight people into that elusive LGBT plus club. Well, LGB, according to Rowling. I mean, honestly, really probably just LG. The only time she's ever mentioned bisexual people, near as I can tell, was 2 years ago when she was referring to the transphobic LGB alliance. Cool stuff. In any case, no, asexual people are not just low libido straight people. They have different experiences of the world, and they have a fundamentally different attitude than people with low libidos or sexual disorders. Several studies have noted this, whether it be the frequency of their fantasies, the content of those fantasies, what stimuli they pay attention to, and whether or not they find their feelings towards sex to be distressing. Asexual identity also appears to be relatively stable across the lifespan, as with other orientations, and it also appears to begin forming very early in life, once again, like other orientations. So no, it is not just people on SSRIs or people with mental health problems. However, I imagine for most people who have a knee-jerk negative attitude towards asexuals, you could put as many studies as you wanted in front of them and they still wouldn't believe it because it's part of a grand conspiracy by the trans cabal, or the woke elite run the university system where these studies are from, so they can't be trusted, or something like that. Again, the comparisons between radfems and the far right just write themselves. And once Rowling started to post about this, it opened the floodgates for others to jump in. After the biggest asexual activist in the UK responded to Rowling, whose name I am not sharing to avoid directing further harassment their way, this invited other people to attack them directly. Quote, "Why would a self-described asexual and aromantic person dress like a total and not only march in, but be the grand marshal of a parade about sexual attraction? It's like an atheist demanding to lead Holy Week procession at the Vatican. Maybe you're just a dumb narcissist." I cannot express my exhaustion at the fact that it's barely April, and we're dealing with Pride Month discourse on the back of the words of a woman who is objectively not part of any portion of the LGBT plus umbrella. This same activist experienced numerous other instances of harassment thanks to Joanne's post, which she naturally neither noticed nor felt any guilt about for inciting. The tacit message is that people like that deserve the harassment because it might make them shut up as they should. And this, I think, illustrates what is happening so clearly. Just like the last time asexual people were the punching bag of public discourse, the very people declaring asexual people aren't discriminated against, why are those lying weirdo wannabes trying so hard to pretend they're oppressed, are the very people doing the discriminating. You'd think they would be the first to decry the oppression Olympics as being part of the woke mind virus, but they're the ones to invoke it if it allows allows them to gatekeep a community they aren't even a part of half the time. I don't think it takes a genius to connect the dots and figure out people editing someone's photo to include harassing comments and directly going after them in everything they post shows the kind of vitriol asexual people are faced with online. For some reason, we've decided that the bar it takes to care about a group's well-being is extremely high. If you are not being hunted for sport on an island or being beaten in the town square, you aren't really being oppressed or mistreated. So saith I, the rich, straight white lady. As I've explained ad nauseum before, oppression points are not the best way to measure whether or not a group belongs under the LGBT plus umbrella. Rich, white, cis, gay dudes living in the Bay Area are less oppressed than trans women living in Brazil. So should we eliminate white, cis, gays from that umbrella? No, of course not, because that would be ridiculous. Not to mention, it's not durable if your goal is ultimately to end that oppression, right? Discrimination, bias, hatred, and oppression can also operate on a much smaller scale and still be impactful. And we should factor into our calculations that very few people are aware that asexuality even exists enough to discriminate against it. Exhibit A, see all of the people groaning and rolling their eyes at JK's post like asexuality popped out of the snow yesterday and is totally made up. But when they do find out, the pitchforks come out instantly. As Rowling dismissively says, quote, people are still killed for being gay in a lot of countries, but straight people who don't fancy a quickie are being literally ignored to death. It really sounds like she's saying asexuals deserve whatever comes to them for complaining about being ignored too loudly, as though that's the point of the thing that she posted to begin with. And next up, I would like to address what the science shows about implicit attitudes towards asexual people and some of the real-world experiences ace people have. But before I do that, there's one little side note that's kind of been bugging me. You see, the post Rowling shared was not originally on Twitter. The account she took the photo from, Switchboard, is a phone support line that hasn't been active on the platform since last September. So what happened is, seemingly, Rowling got so mad seeing a milquetoast social media post from an organization that has under 20,000 followers on its biggest platform that she had to repost it to Twitter to rant about it to, again, about 14.5 million people. But yeah, it's asexuals who are begging for attention. If merely raising awareness about the existence of asexuality brings up this much hatred, imagine how much worse it would be if, say, the biggest public transphobe in the world made anti-asexuality advocacy her next big thing. It has the vibe of like, oh yeah, you aren't being discriminated against, we don't even know you exist, but trust me, if we did, we would make you shut up and stop complaining. But yeah, just a little side note there. JK seemingly got herself in a tizzy because a phone support line showed support for one of the groups it supports. Yeah, they are really just shoving it in people's faces with that single banal infographic, huh? Anyway, let's get to the science. Is it fair to say that asexuality constitutes a marginalized group if that's the yardstick we're using to determine whether or not people are allowed to be part of the LGBT plus umbrella or have an awareness day dedicated to them? Well, for one, there's how the notoriously homophobic Russian government treats ace people. They are considered to be part of the LGBT plus extremist group by the government there. Thus, they are subject to severe legal discrimination, including the threat of over a decade of jail time. In the West, over 25% of asexual people report experiencing workplace harassment. Over 30% report experiencing harassment, abuse, or controlling behavior at home. Both of these numbers track with the frequency reported by bisexual, queer, and pansexual folks. And as the ace couple has thoroughly documented on their podcast, asexual people are frequently subjected to marital and medical discrimination. Nearly half of the states have some kind of marital consummation law, which threatens to invalidate asexual marriages. Asexual people are often subjected to unnecessary medical procedures, such as unnecessary pregnancy tests, STI blood draws, and or denial of certain medications due to medical professionals refusing to believe any adult human being could genuinely abstain from sex, especially within a marriage. About 8.5% of asexual people reported experiencing an incident along these lines personally. Gynecological and urological issues are dismissed as having simple sexual origins, even when the patient attests to their lack of sexual contact, causing issues to progress while being left untreated. And historically, asexuality has been subject to significant medicalization, with it being compared to hypoactive desire disorder and seen as a defect that needs and in fact, requires some kind of medical cure. This can also include the use of conversion therapy against ace people, which over 10% of asexual people have been reportedly subject to, compared to, by the way, 7.5% of gay people. And anecdotally, I can tell you that asexual people face corrective rape in significant numbers. I am not going to sugarcoat it. That's what it is. We don't yet have any studies to put a number to this figure, but like other marginalized people, asexual people are assaulted for the sake of correcting their non-normative behavior. This applies to asexual people across the gender and romantic orientation spectrum, by the way. I personally know no less than a half dozen asexual people who were assaulted by a partner or acquaintance because of their identity. I know anecdotal evidence isn't worth much, but that is all we have for now. And these are just the explicit actions asexual people are subject to. Studies have also shown that people, both queer and cishet, have an implicit bias against asexual people, with asexual people viewed as less human and less reliable. People were also less willing to hire an asexual person for a job, less willing to want to rent to them, to have them as a roommate, and less likely to want general social contact with them. All of this amounts to asexual people being seen as other and alien by both queer and cishet people, and generating the kind of social isolation which may be contributing to the poor mental health outcomes of asexual people when compared to both their heterosexual and queer counterparts. I imagine that some may take this as proof that asexual people are asexual because they are depressed and are on SSRI medication, but no study we have has shown the correlation runs that direction. It's the fear of being outed, misunderstood, and socially rejected that seems to cause the poor mental health we see in asexual people. When you stop and consider the roots of discrimination against asexuality, none of these findings are at all surprising, and much of it goes back to society's fixation on sex. Be that the liberal sex at dawn types who harp on about how sexuality is fundamental to all human nature and to deny that is deny being human, or the conservatives who believe marriage is the physical and spiritual union of one man and one woman in holy matrimony. Anyone who has spent any length of time around fundamentalists knows that they love talking about and especially policing sex. On the one hand, demonizing sex as this horrible, sinful thing, or even thinking about it can send you straight to hell, and on the other, praising it as God's great gift to man and woman. Through this, the married couple, but especially the woman, is able to fulfill their one true job on this earth, having more babies to be part of God's holy army against Satan. Even non-asexual people who grow up in fundamentalism are hit by expectational whiplash, suddenly going from pure virginal maidens to wives who are expected to fulfill their husband's sexual whims for the sake of procreation. Or indeed, on the other side, if they're the man, they're expected to be a virile head of house who can't keep his hands off his wife because, that's the Holy Spirit moving through you to do God's will and boink or something like that. And as I've discussed in videos before, deviation from this formula is aberrant to conservative Christians. If you are not a cis-het, white, Protestant Christian in a properly godly marriage, you are doing life wrong. If you do not fit this mold, you should be expected to step aside for those who do follow God's righteous one true path. As Dr. Canton Weiner explained on Twitter, a union between anti-trans and anti-asexual beliefs is therefore predictable. Quote, "Your gender is rigid, assigned at birth, and natural. You don't have agency over it. Thus, the attacks on trans healthcare and participation in public life. Under fascism, a central role of women is to provide sex and children. That's women's natural role. one of the men's natural roles under fascism is to sire children. Thus, the attacks on asexual people. Asexual people are viewed, as we have already established, as alien, inhuman, and even animal-like by non-ace people, whether they be so-called liberal radical feminists or conservatives. It's all the same to them. You are denying biological reality and deserve whatever punishment is necessary to get you to stop denying that biological reality. Anything seen as unnatural must be stomped out before it infects the real, true, pure way of living we are meant to have. It doesn't take much of a reach to imagine that J.K. Rowling believes similar things about asexual youths as she does about trans youths, that they don't exist, and pretending they do is playing along with a dangerous fantasy that could ruin their lives forever. That asexuality is coaching sexually normal but low libido teens into denying their humanity so they can run away from mainstream society and enjoy, again, the trans cabal or whatever. She hasn't said as much yet, but mark my words, if she continues down her anti-asexual path, which I believe she will, words like this are sure to come out of her skinny little fingers. And I would know, because, look at mine, right? And at the end of the day, it's a very simple question. If asexuals are merely being ignored out of existence, as Rowling sarcastically put it, why is it whenever the term comes up, the public instantly has a meltdown about it until they believe they've shamed the yucky, weird, self-important asexuals into silence? Because that sounds to me like they aren't so much being ignored as being compelled into either hiding or assimilation. And what do we call it when that happens? Yeah, I think there's your answer. All right, y'all, last minute breaking update to this story. I saw a tweet earlier today, and I at first did not know what she meant by this, and then I learned, and I was disgusted and horrified, and I don't want to make a whole other video about it, so we're including it here at the end. J.K. Rowling, quote, tweeted somebody who said, "I'm guessing none of the big posh papers have covered J.K. Rowling turning on asexuals." And J.K. said in response, "All these years, and I had no idea I was the cure." And my little brain was, this is possibly the most asexual thing that could have happened in this scenario. I read that and I was like, what does she mean by that? The cure to what? What is she talking about? And it's a double entendre with turn on, where she's talking about her turning on asexuals and her being the cure for asexuals not being turned on, and do you hear yourself, Rowling? Do you hear the words that are coming out of your skinny little fingers? What is this? I was disgusted. I was horrified. I just simply do not understand why she thinks that is in any way an acceptable thing to say. Literally just saying asexual people are people that have problems being turned on and that she cured them. Just, it's so gross. I'm not shocked. Like, I've seen what she said about trans people for like 5 years. So this is not new. New target though. And like, could you imagine if somebody said that about her, that like they were the cure for J.K. Rowling being turned on? She would have a conniption. She would have a hissy fit. She would have a meltdown. But you can say it about a whole group of people that you're trying to ridicule in public, then it's fine. As a joke. As a little treat. Okay. I think there was one more point that I saw somebody else make on Twitter about this that I want to bring up as well. Because if you are, for some reason, a rad femme and you're listening to this or just anybody, and you care about the state of the world and things being better for women and queer people, this is what you have to be aware of. J.K. Rowling and or the people who are like puppeteering around her to make sure she gets enraged like a caged dragon, they are trying to divide and conquer. as J.K. Rowling says, presumably, she is concerned about women not being able to be unified as a political bloc to advocate for their own needs. In reality, what's happening is they are trying to break apart the political bloc of queer people by getting them to turn on each other. I have seen this both with ace people who, like, kind of agree with J.K. Rowling, who are like, yeah, you're right, we don't need a date to be in public, that's weird, which is like, just because you personally don't want it doesn't mean other people don't benefit from that. Shh. Quiet. Shh. Just maybe keep that thought inside. And more than that, it's that people, like you saw, like there were multiple quotes I gave, I think today, from gay men who were like, yeah, what those weird asexual people, what's up with that? And like, you don't get to choose who's in your club, dude. Not your club. But, like, the point is to get people to turn and be like, oh, trans people, oh, asexuals, oh, bisexuals. Let's all, like, divide them up and make it so they're all infighting. So, meanwhile, we can, like, make it illegal to, like, be openly trans as an adult in America or whatever. Like, it's just a distraction from the actual real harms that could be happening. And it's the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. Realize it's happening, folks. That's all I really have to say for this today. This is a doozy. Hope that you all liked being informed about this, because I know that I'm approximately one of like 3 YouTubers capable of covering this subject because of all my various intersections. And oh, by the way, I wore a sheer top on purpose as an aspec person when making this video. So if you left a comment calling me a because I'm wearing a sheer top, congrats. You figured it out. That is exactly, yep, you got me. This is, good job. All right, people, that's going to be it for today. Thank you all so much for listening to this. If you want to see more from me, I make educational content about the LGBT community and queer issues and kink and all sorts of various other things. And if you want to support what I do in these troubling times, you can go over to my Patreon. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.